name's Brett Holt. I grew up in Calgary area on a little farm. My art really represents what I am, and a farm kid from southern Alberta, and love tractors and wheat fields and Rocky Mountains and old things like tractor wheels and old trucks and things like that. I've been full-time artist for 15 years now, and I think at Spruce Meadows for over 10. My work is very much mixed media. I mix all kinds of different materials from wood to metal. I paint, and I use digital media too. My paintings are kind of like a mixture of all those things. So there'll be an image in the middle that I create, and then it's surrounded by a sculpture of something that relates to the painting that's in the middle. I'm a bit of a picker at heart, so I go out rural Alberta, barnyards, old factories, auctions, and I find something that really speaks to me, and then I create a piece of art around it. I usually go out to find inspiration. I find something first. So I found this in a little farmyard outside of Crossfield, and it's just a big baler wheel, and then I create a painting or an image to kind of match it. And so this here is just kind of a story of an old wheat field and an old grain elevator in the background, and this is kind of the piece of machinery that would have took the harvest. This is my latest piece. I love horses, obviously, and I found this 150-year-old horse stable door just outside of Millerville area, and I just thought it would be awesome for a painting of this beautiful horse. And I just tried to match the colors, and you can kind of see where the horses have chewed out a little bit, and I just love the history of it and how the frame is a bit of a sculpture and tells a story about the painting. Spruce Meadows is very much me. I've always felt really comfortable there. I went there as a kid. Of course, I love horses. And the people that go to Spruce Meadows are very much my demographic and a lot like me. Acreages, country homes, shabby chic decor, and just love the history of the area and things like that.
The hardware, symbolic of international show jumping supremacy at the Spruce Meadows Masters.
On Saturday of the Masters, we celebrate British Day. Spruce Meadows has had a strong connection to Great Britain since first opening the gates in 1975. Historically, British riders and British teams have been a powerhouse here at Spruce Meadows, as well as all over the world on the international show jumping circuit. One family in particular is highly represented on the list of wins here. That, of course, is the Whitaker family. The Whitaker dynasty has long been associated with show jumping success around the world and is a name synonymous with British equestrianism. Our Spruce Meadows television team has put together an in-depth look at the British phenom family, the Whitakers.
The Fédération Équestre Internationale, the FEI, is the world's governing body for the horse sports. For nearly a century, show jumping has enjoyed the highest profile of the 7 FEI disciplines. With 130 member countries, the FEI sanctions over 700 jumping events annually. Elite show jumpers are similar to other Olympic athletes, but they differ in both how they play and for how long they can play the game. Men and women compete against each other on the same playing field. careers can and often do span decades. Winning counts. It's what it takes to become a contender.
I remember when I came here, they used to win 3-4 classes, each of them, and I was always like, sometimes even frustrated watching them because I thought I would be never able to beat one of them.
A sterling performance, John Whitaker and Henderson Gavin of Great Britain.
I really admired what they were doing and the way they were doing it, winning classes and making everything look so easy.
Your 1995 Demore Limited International Champion, Michael Whitaker.
First three-time winner of the Demore Limited International, John Whitaker of Great Britain.
I distinctly remember during the 84 Olympics in Los Angeles, lying on the floor in front of the fire, watching the jumping, knowing that John had to go and jump for 4 faults or less for the British team to get the silver medal. And I'd be lying if I told you what jump he had down, but he had a jump sort of early, midway through the course. I'm thinking, oh my goodness me, we're going to lose the silver medal. And they come through in the clutch, and that for me was a real landmark point for me in sort of the sport and watching the sport and aspiring to want to be something in the sport. There's no question.
40 FEI championship medals, over 250 Nations Cups.
I'll invite you, Michael Bowman, to lift from the podium the Bank of Montreal Nations Cup 1996 champion.
Countless Grand Prix victories, 3 decades at or near the top of the sport.
Michael Whitaker riding a horse called Warren Point.
These should not be mistaken for the historic statistics of a powerhouse show jumping nation in their entirety. This simply represents the tip of the iceberg of what a couple of farm kids from Yorkshire, England have accomplished since storming onto the world stage in the late 1970s to show the rest of the world how it could be done.
Michael Whitaker, a fantastic horseman. I think he's a real clear thinker and unbelievable talent for riding. And again, when the chips are down and it's a big competition, he's always ready, and he's one of the best ones.
Well, the one big reason is I can't do anything else. That's about the only thing I can do, so I've got to keep working at it.
As very young boys, the brothers Whitaker, John and Michael, were encouraged to try riding ponies by their mother Enid.
I wasn't like my kids were on ponies before they could walk. It wasn't quite like that for me. I would say about 5 or 6 years old. And yeah, I can't say I can exactly remember it, but I remember the early days very well.
Perhaps she had a hunch, mother's intuition, whatever the case, since first putting their feet in the stirrups decades ago, the Whitakers have set an incredible standard in the sport as arguably 2 of the most complete natural horsemen in history.
In the beginning, I just wanted to be around horses. I think it probably really came from watching show jumping on television and thinking, you know, that's good, I like that. And then I used to get my pony out and practice. And when I was riding ponies, I used to do everything like the mounted games and the eventing, everything, but it was kind of show jumping that I was pulled towards, really. And yeah, I can't explain why, it just appealed to me and went from there, yeah.
From there to the top of the sport. A lofty claim, but one just needs to spend some time with these understated Englishmen or any of the thousands of international athletes they have ridden with and against throughout their careers to get a sense of what special horsemen they truly are.
You know, one of the great salutes to John Whitaker that I've ever witnessed or been a part of is how highly he is respected in Aachen. You know, the hallowed ground of European show jumping, great German dominance over the years by fantastic horses and fantastic horsemen. When John Whitaker comes into the stadium at Aachen, they rise to their feet and they applaud.
John Whitaker.
There is nowhere they are more comfortable than on the back of a horse. John, the eldest by 5 years, cut an impressive swath for Great Britain immediately after being named to the national team in 1975.
As a matter of fact, John and Ryan's son were the first horse.
John Whitaker first hit the headlines when he was teamed up with the unassuming, odd-looking gelding Ryan's son. Their tremendous success together early in Whitaker's career included 6 championship medals at Olympic, World, and European Championship events. His consistent results helped secure a regular place on the British team and gain the confidence of team manager Ronnie Massarella. No one could have anticipated, however, the length, breadth, and scope of the run that lay ahead. It became clear early on to fans, media, officials, and the competition that there was something mysterious about the Whitaker way. It was being noticed at both the open and junior level of the sport. While John was entrenching himself with the results-driven national team of Ronnie Massarella, Michael was leading British young riders to championships on the continent. Convergence occurred in 1982, when 22-year-old Michael was first selected to a British Nations Cup team a full 2 years after his first Hickstead Derby championship.
He is a good rider. I mean, he's a top rider. He's unbelievably competitive. He doesn't know when he's beaten.
Stand as high as 5'9" tall. Oh, and coming into the triple combination, Michael has a bit of a problem and has collected 8 faults so far.
A family trait he shared with his older brother. In a span of 5 years, there had literally been a complete overhaul of the British team to include the Whitaker brothers and a third talented young gun, Nick Skelton.
Nick Skelton of Great Britain and the horse Everest St. James.
British show jumping had never seen the likes of the three amigos, nor had it seen the results they would post over the next quarter century. When John and Michael Whitaker arrive at a tournament ground, they do so with one thing in mind: winning.
We still try to beat each other, just like anybody else. If he's in the lead, I try and beat him. I think in many respects it makes it a little bit easier for us, because if he's in the lead, I think to myself, well, if he can do it, I can do it. I'm sure it's vice versa, and so we're competing against each other, which I think also brings the best out in us. Yeah, competing against him, when we're in the ring, I treat him like anybody else. If he's winning, I'll try and beat him. It's, there's no love lost there. But no, like I say, it's very, very good time at the shows, because at least if you need a bit of advice or a bit of help on something, you're going to get the right answer.
As quiet and understated as they appear on the outside, inside burns a competitive inferno. Regardless of the event, whether it be a major championship, a Grand Prix, Nations Cup, Derby, Puissance, or speed event, the Whitakers are, and always have been, about winning.
I always try my best, it's not always, I don't win every time I go in the ring, but I try every time I go in the ring. I love to win, it's a challenge every time. And this job, show jumping, it's a challenge to find a good horse, to produce it, take it to its first show and so on.
The wins are truly countless, too many to remember. But the horses that they have ridden to victory are certainly memorable.
I think it all started off with Ryan's son. I actually got him when I was 17. So that gave my career a real boost, finding such a good horse when I was so young.
He's one of those horses, when you talk about the attributes that a jumping horse needs, he had very few of them. But the one thing he had was heart and try in bucket loads. His technique was good enough. It wasn't great. His scope was good enough. wasn't great. But everything else that he had, his desire to go and get to the other side of a jump, was just outstanding. You know, and one of the things, as a kid I remember, you know, you think of things about certain horses. He had this great big white face, dark brown body, great big white face, a little bit long in the back. But whenever he jumped the last jump and went through the finish line, he bucked. And occasionally he might kick back and even knock a rail down. But it was one of the things that really endeared him to the British people at the time.
The next one after Ryan Sun was Milton, which was an unbelievable dream to get such a superstar.
John ends up getting given this horse called Milton. And this horse had the sort of the hallmark, the characteristics that you were looking for in a great jumping horse. Very elegant, lots of scope, seemed to have the right temperament. And I don't think anybody really knew where this was all going to go, but the history books will tell you that this was one of the legends in the sport of all time, of any era, of any generation. One's gone, any to come. John and Milton will be forever remembered as genuine superstars. But you know, the horse was just so spectacular, and winning back-to-back World Cup finals really just sort of, I think, elevated him into the worldwide audience.
Once John was riding for that worldwide audience, the attention stayed on him and Michael with their phenomenal string of horses: Monsanta, Gammon, Grenuche, Two-Step. These represent just the horses that the Whitakers have ridden to the winner's circle on Grand Prix Day at the Spruce Meadows Masters alone. Their legendary status as riders was built on an enviable stable of talented horses. When John Whitaker and Grenuche won the Grand Prix at the Spruce Meadows Masters, it was the third time for Whitaker and the first time for Grenuche. Whitaker's record of 3 is matched only by fellow teammate Nick Skelton.
Here's with next Milton, Everest Gammon, and now with Everest Grenuche, the first 3-time winner of the Du Maurier Limited International, John Whitaker of Great Britain.
And there was Wellham, a good horse that became great when John was in the irons. The pair took home medals from around the globe.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Legendary status does not come easily. It's earned. It takes time to establish. Through the decades, John and Michael Whitaker have established themselves and earned that legendary status. In some ways, it might have been in the cards from the first time they rode ponies, but playing those cards took as much work as it did talent. That work came with its share of setbacks and heartbreaks. In show jumping, handling a stable of horses comes with its own unique set of challenges.
There's always problems, you know, with horses. There's always things is never straightforward. And I think you just learn to live with that from an early point in your career.
It's never straightforward. There are horse injuries, team depth, and a life on the road to contend with. And as if that weren't enough, John Whitaker was thrown yet another curveball in 2000, a near-fatal brain aneurysm while in a competition in Sweden.
I had an aneurysm. I wasn't competing at the time when it happened, but I was in a show in Sweden, in Stockholm actually. To be honest, I didn't know much about what happened. I just woke up in hospital, you know, with wires, pipes and wires sticking everywhere out of my body. And
those pipes and wires kept him alive, and once it was understood that Whitaker would survive the life-threatening setback, most close to the sport saw it as the end of an era. A great career, 3 decades of competing at the top of the sport.
After his aneurysm, I think there was probably a number of people, not least of all me, that, you know, thought, well, okay, I mean, it's probably the last we've seen of John right at the top of the sport.
Not only did John seem finished, fellow British stalwart Nick Skelton suffered a broken neck and was also presumed to be permanently out of the game. It would now be Michael carrying the family mantle and the well-established British tradition of success on the world show jumping stage. Michael did so productively and in some degree of isolation for the next number of years. He enjoyed success and victories with a number of different horses. Laconda, the Westphalian mare who came through to become an invaluable partner for Michael. taking him to a gold medal at the 2005 Spruce Meadows Canadian Championships. Prince of Wales, the Holsteiner mare Fleur, and Handel. It was indeed impressive, and as fate would have it, in sync with the next generation of Whitaker show jumpers. Younger faces started to surface and fill the immense void left by the departure of two of the sport's all-time greats. Ellen Whitaker, the daughter of Stephen, another of the Whitaker brothers, arrived on the scene at the forefront of the next generation, the first to carry the expectations of the Whitaker name into another era.
Being able to come to the same shows as them is fantastic. Like, I'm learning all the time. If I ask for help or whatever, they're there to give it to me, and they take into consideration that I'm younger and probably a little bit less experienced, well, a lot less experienced. But no, they treat me fine, completely equal, the same as everybody else.
By 2007, with Uncle Michael having carried the bulk of the family, team, and individual competitive load for some time, the show jumping world experienced yet another stunning Whitaker move. Was it a time warp, a deja vu? John, despite long odds, simply refused to allow it all to end.
You know, it is a serious thing to happen, but there was no any point in my mind that I thought, oh, this is it, you know, this is the end of my career or whatever. It had the opposite effect on me. It made me more determined, you know, to succeed and carry on doing what I really enjoy. It made me stronger, it made me tougher, more determined.
And I don't know whether that's because he thinks people had written him off or had heard people had written him off or whatever, but to go and produce the round that he produced in Mannheim this year, at the 2007 European Championships, to clinch the bronze medal for Britain and ultimately get a place at the Olympics in Beijing, was classic Whitaker.
Classic Whitaker that's now grown to include a second generation. A check of the FEI Athlete Registry reveals a total of 13 carded FEI athletes carrying the Whitaker moniker into competition for Britain. None to date, however, with the complete game and results of the family's grizzled veterans, John and Michael. Michael now rides the likes of Portofino.
He's one of those people that right now is in a very fortunate position. I think he's got two top horses. He's not quite made that highlight-grabbing championship win. You know, he's consistently in the top 10 in the world. Right now, I think primarily through Portofino. The other horse he's got is a little stallion, Mozart des Ayet, who looks for all the world like a real star in the sport now. You know, I mean, we saw him, unfortunately, this summer take a heck of a fall in the BMO Nations Cup. But you know what, that can happen, and it can happen to the best riders on the best horses. But I think, you know, certainly Michael feels right now that he's got two top horses, which, you know, anybody would be thrilled to have.
Not to be outdone, John claims he's riding some of the best horses he's ever had.
At the moment I've got Peppermilk. He's a 10-year-old. I think he's quite a way off his best yet. You know, he's still, I feel there's a lot of improvement there. He's really good. He's got stacks of ability, a fantastic temperament, and like I say, he's still learning. I have to work a little bit on the control side of it, but that's improving all the time. But I think he's, like I say, he ranks with the good ones I've had in the past.
I think once he's learned the sport a little bit more, then he's going to be a real force to be reckoned with. And of course, with having John in the tack, it's only a matter of time till that happens. It's not if that's going to happen, it's when that's going to happen.
With the stable now deep in horsepower, Team Great Britain, Team Whitaker, is once again a threat in any competition, at any tournament, and on any continent. Once again, athletes, fans, and media look at the Whitakers as two of the greatest in the game. Recent medals at the European Championships and Spruce Meadows Masters, while welcome additions to the dozens that John and Michael have amassed through the years, serve as an inspirational starting point and incentive for Ellen and the next generation of Whitakers who can now truly appreciate and understand what's been accomplished. Every indication is that the elder Whitaker lads are today still very much at the top of their game.
You look at John, who's had so many great victories and then went through a little bit of a dry spell in terms of horseflesh. Now he's back and proving that he is the maestro that he is.
They've inspired an entire generation of British riders, many of whom carry their last name. They seem to welcome the challenge put forth by those trying to take their time-honored positions in the sport's premiership. It's understood, for reasons that are as clear today as they were 20 years ago, that the Whitakers, John and Michael, still must always be considered contenders.
Memorial Limited International Champion, Michael Whitaker. The year 1995, Memorial Limited International Champion. Congratulations.